Fernando Mendoza is now suing Maxx Crosby after the viral locker room incident, and the Raiders are being dragged into a full legal storm. But the real turning point is what that hidden camera actually caught. In the moments before everything escalated, and once you hear the leaked audio from Mendoza's legal team, the ultimatum Crosby delivered completely reframes the entire situation. In late December 2025, the Las Vegas Raiders were 2-13 and spiraling toward what would become a 3-14 season. The franchise was in ruins. 7 different starting quarterbacks had cycled through the building over the previous 3 years, and the team had compiled a 15-36 record in that span. The only constant on this roster, the one player who showed up every single week and performed at an elite level regardless of the chaos around him, was defensive end Maxx Crosby. Crosby had been dealing with a nagging knee injury since the Raiders' 31-0 loss to the Kansas City Chiefs in Week 7, but had managed to play in every game. 15 straight games, 10 sacks, a career-best 28 tackles for loss. His 5th consecutive Pro Bowl nod was already secured. The man was playing at the peak of his powers, even as the franchise crumbled around him. Then the Raiders told him he was done. Head coach Pete Carroll and the front office made the decision to shut Crosby down for the final 2 games of the regular season. Those 2 games against the New York Giants and then the Kansas City Chiefs were not about winning. Everyone in the building knew what they were about. The Raiders were in a battle for the number 1 pick in the 2026 draft. Losing those games would lock it in, and pulling your best players off the field was the quietest, most corporate way to make sure those losses happened. Crosby did not take it well. According to Fox Sports NFL reporter Jay Glazer, Crosby vehemently disagreed with the idea and left the facility. He was gone, out the door. Carroll confirmed it publicly, saying, "He said, I'd like to get out of here. So I said, get out of here." And he took off. Carroll, to his credit, did not frame it as insubordination. He backed Crosby. He told reporters, "It was exactly like you would think he would do and he should do." And I agree with him 1000% on how he responded. But the damage was done. Crosby had walked out of the building. He left. And what he did next made things worse. The superstar edge rusher, while supposedly nursing a knee issue that was too serious for him to play football, posted a video of himself playing basketball, as well as a photo of him jumping on a trampoline with his daughter. What type of message that sent to the rest of the locker room? He said plainly, "It's not a good look." And there it was, a frustrated superstar, a franchise tanking for a pick, a locker room watching their leader walk away, and then post on social media like he was on vacation. Meanwhile, the very pick the Raiders were tanking to get, the pick that would become Fernando Mendoza, was the whole reason they shut Crosby down in the first place. The entire ugly episode was connected. That number 1 selection and Crosby's frustration were 2 sides of the same coin. Earlier that same week, Crosby had been asked about the possibility of the team securing the top pick. His response was blunt, "I don't give a S about the pick. I don't play for that." He followed that up by saying his job was to be the best defensive end in the world, and that tanking was the front office's business, not his. So the man who would become the Raiders' franchise quarterback, Fernando Mendoza, owed his path to Las Vegas to a process that had infuriated the team's most important veteran. This was the foundation of what would come next. The 2025 season ended, the Raiders locked in the number 1 pick, and now a new regime was taking over. Clint Kubiak, coming off a Super Bowl LX win as the Seahawks offensive coordinator, arrived in Las Vegas as the new head coach. John Spytek stepped in as general manager. They inherited a mess, and the centerpiece of that mess was a paradox. They had the best non-quarterback player on the roster in Crosby, and they had the number 1 pick, which was going to be a quarterback. The future was supposed to start fresh, and Crosby's frustration from December had not evaporated. On March 6, 2026, the Raiders pulled the trigger on a blockbuster. They agreed to trade Maxx Crosby to the Baltimore Ravens for a pair of first-round picks, the number 14 overall pick in 2026 and a first-rounder in 2027. It was seismic. The Raiders' locker room erupted with emotional farewells. Jackson Powers Johnson posted a message on his Instagram story. Tyree Wilson, who had been drafted into the defensive line room with Crosby back in 2023 and grew up under his wing, wrote, "This game gave me a brother for life." Brennan Jackson called him a legend. Leader. It was done. The franchise was moving on. The Mendoza era was set to begin with extra draft capital and a clean emotional slate. Except it wasn't done, not even close. 3 days later, the entire thing collapsed. The Ravens shocked everyone by backing out of the Crosby trade. The reason Crosby did not pass his physical, his torn meniscus from week 3 of the 2025 season, the same knee that had been too injured for those final 2 games in December, failed the Ravens' medical evaluation. The Raiders released a terse statement. The Baltimore Ravens have backed out of our trade agreement for Maxx Crosby. We will have no further comment at this time. Now picture the scene. The entire building had already said goodbye. Teammates had posted their heartfelt tributes on social media. The front office had orchestrated free agency moves. Under the impression that Crosby would be gone, they had signed linebacker Quay Walker, linebacker Nakobe Dean, defensive end Kwity Paye, cornerback Eric Stokes, and defensive end Malcolm Kuntz, rebuilding the defensive roster for a post-Crosby world. And then Crosby walked right back into that building. The atmosphere shifted from moving on to moving forward together. But the underlying tension was thick. The front office had showed its hand by putting Crosby on the block, and the resulting fractured trust was the biggest hurdle in Vegas. Crosby, now 28, was back in a building that had tried to ship him across the country. The failed trade drastically altered Las Vegas's plans for the 2026 season and beyond. Those 2 first-round picks vanished. The extra draft capital that was supposed to surround Mendoza with talent, gone. Crosby eventually spoke publicly. He told reporters, "This team showed they had my back when things got messy last week. I've always said I want to be a Raider for life." By mid-April, he ran into newly signed quarterback Kirk Cousins at the facility. "It was dope. We had a great conversation. He was awesome. Definitely fired me up," Crosby said. He acknowledged the turbulence of the offseason, saying, "Unfortunately, I've been a part of a lot of those big overhauls and changes. But it's always exciting and new to be part of something that is starting fresh and from the ground up." That fresh start from the ground up had a name, and it was Fernando Mendoza. To understand what Fernando Mendoza represents to the Las Vegas Raiders and why his arrival into that fractured locker room matters so deeply, you have to understand where he came from. Because the #1 overall pick in the 2026 NFL Draft was not supposed to exist. Mendoza grew up in Miami, the son of Elsa and Fernando Mendoza Sr. His father is the pediatric emergency director at Nicklaus Children's Hospital. His mother, a former tennis player at the University of Miami, who earned 2 degrees from the school, lives with multiple sclerosis. The entire Mendoza family traces its roots back to Cuba. All 4 of Fernando's grandparents were born and raised there, fleeing in the years around Castro's revolution, and eventually building new lives in Miami's Cuban-American community. Fernando attended Christopher Columbus High School, the same school where his father had once played football, alongside current Miami Hurricanes head coach Mario Cristobal. He was not a heavily recruited prospect, which later added to his underdog story. His original commitment, Yale, an Ivy League school. He was going to play football and get a world-class education because that's what the Mendoza family valued. Then Cal lost their top quarterback target, and suddenly they needed a backup plan. Mendoza flipped his commitment to Berkeley, his only Power 4 scholarship offer, and never looked back. He redshirted his first year at Cal, barely saw the field the next year, and then became the starter, putting up more than 4,700 yards and 30 touchdowns over his starting career with the Bears. But Cal went 6-7 in both full seasons he started. The program was stuck in neutral. In December 2024, Mendoza entered the transfer portal. The decision to go to Indiana was about family. His younger brother, Alberto, had followed coach Curt Cignetti from James Madison to Indiana and was serving as a backup quarterback for the Hoosiers. Alberto convinced his older brother to join him in Bloomington. Fernando committed to Indiana on December 23, 2024. What happened next was the kind of season that changes a program's entire history. Mendoza completed 72% of his passes for 3,535 yards, threw 41 touchdowns against just 6 interceptions, and went 16-0. He led Indiana to their first national championship in program history, beating Miami in the title game, the very school coached by Cristobal, his father's old high school teammate. The championship game was played at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami Gardens, just 3 miles from Christopher Columbus High School. He was named Offensive Player of the Game. He won the Heisman Trophy, becoming Indiana's first ever recipient. He won the AP College Football Player of the Year, the Walter Camp Award, the Maxwell Award, the Davy O'Brien Award, Big Ten Offensive Player of the Year, and Big Ten Quarterback of the Year. He delivered part of his Heisman acceptance speech in Spanish to honor his family, telling the audience, "I want every kid out there who feels overlooked and underestimated. I was you." He arrived in the NFL as the most decorated college quarterback prospect since Joe Burrow, and the team waiting for him at the top of the draft was the Las Vegas Raiders, the same franchise that had just tried to trade away their best player and failed, the same team whose locker room had been rocked by months of instability. On April 24th, 2026, the Las Vegas Raiders selected Fernando Mendoza with the first overall pick in the 2026 NFL Draft. And the very first person from the organization to publicly welcome him was the same man who had walked out of the facility 4 months earlier. Minutes after the pick, Crosby went straight to X with a message directly to his new teammate. He wrote, "LFG, welcome to the dark side, brother," tagging Mendoza's account with 3 pirate flag emojis. But that wasn't the beginning. On his podcast, The Rush, Crosby revealed that the connection with the rookie quarterback started even before draft night. Mendoza had visited the Raiders facility prior to the draft, and Crosby sat down with him. "I had the chance to have a great conversation with him when he came on his visit. I got to chop it up with him a little bit," Crosby said. Then on draft night itself, he got on FaceTime and talked to Mendoza. They had been texting back and forth ever since. This was not a strained relationship. This was not tension. This was a veteran leader reaching down to pull a rookie up. Crosby laid out his intentions clearly. "I'm really fired up for him. Excited to take him under my wing and help him out. Show him the way and just encourage him to be himself and lead in his own way." He then offered the kind of advice that only comes from someone who has lived through years of organizational chaos. He told Mendoza, "You don't need a lot of words initially. You're a young guy. You've got to earn that respect from the locker room, and that's by the work you put in and by your actions." He emphasized showing up early, leaving late, being consistent, and most importantly, being authentic. Don't be a shell of yourself. Let your personality show. Crosby also spoke about Mendoza's journey with a kind of admiration that bordered on reverence. He said with Fernando, he didn't have the easiest road. He started at Cal, and then he transferred. He wasn't considered the #1 pick going into this past season, but he handled the adversity incredibly. He pointed to Mendoza winning every game, winning a national championship, winning the Heisman, and the lesson that carried anytime you get an opportunity to go out there and just compete and just put your best foot forward. That's what it all comes down to, and that's where you earn respect from the guys. Mendoza, for his part, matched the energy with the right temperament. At his first Raiders press conference, he kept returning to the same theme. The pick is an honor, but the job still has to be earned. He told reporters, "I still need to earn it, and I haven't proved anything. In the NFL, I'm on the bottom of the totem pole again." He confirmed hearing from Crosby along with Tyler Linderbaum, Colton Miller, and Kirk Cousins. In the hours after the draft, head coach Clint Kubiak described why Mendoza was their guy. "The #1 thing that I love about Fernando is his leadership, the way that he relates to his teammates, and his ability to win." General Manager John Spytek emphasized that the selection was not a coronation, and that Mendoza had earned it every bit of the way. Mendoza entered the building during rookie minicamp, taking 25 to 50 snaps under center with each offensive lineman, and told reporters, "I'm just trying to take it all in and get better every single day. Pay attention to detail and connect with teammates." The infrastructure around him was deliberately constructed for stability. Kirk Cousins signed as a bridge quarterback, and even Tom Brady, a minority owner and Raiders designated mentor, had already met with Mendoza during the pre-draft process. So the locker room scene that people were buzzing about, the one that supposedly went public, it did happen, but it looked nothing like what you might have imagined. So here's where we land on this. After going through every publicly available report, every podcast transcript, every press conference, every social media post, and every insider account from the Las Vegas Raiders this offseason, there is no lawsuit filed by Fernando Mendoza against Maxx Crosby. There is no shocking locker room incident between them that has gone public. It does not exist. What does exist is a complicated and emotionally charged sequence of events that, when stripped of context and reassembled for a headline, can be made to sound far more sinister than reality. The locker room incident that people reference traces back to 2 separate events, neither of which involves Mendoza in any direct way. The first was Crosby leaving the Raiders facility in December 2025, after being told he would be shut down for the final 2 games. That was a dispute between Crosby and the coaching staff over his injury status, during a tank for the very pick that became Mendoza. The second was the failed trade to Baltimore in March 2026, which created an awkward reunion in the building and genuine fractured trust between Crosby and the front office. Both of those events happened before Mendoza was even drafted. Mendoza was still at Indiana when all of this unfolded. What actually happened once Mendoza arrived was something entirely different. Crosby immediately welcomed him publicly, reached out privately before draft night, FaceTimed him on draft night, and then pledged to mentor him publicly on his podcast. Mendoza responded with humility, telling reporters he was on the bottom of the totem pole and needed to earn everything. Their dynamic, by every available account, is exactly what you'd want between a franchise's best veteran and its incoming franchise quarterback. The idea that a lawsuit exists between these two players is, based on all available evidence, fabricated. No reputable outlet, not ESPN, not NFL Network, not Sports Illustrated, not Yahoo Sports, not Bleacher Report, has reported any legal action between Mendoza and Crosby. What has been widely reported is that Crosby has 5 consecutive Pro Bowl nods and is now preparing for what could be the most promising season of his 8-year career. What has been widely reported is that Mendoza is a fierce competitor who will have every opportunity to grow and learn during OTAs and minicamp, with Kirk Cousins currently serving as QB1 and a clear separation between them. What has been widely reported is that the Raiders' defense, with Crosby at the center, will attack from wherever they want, whenever they want, under new defensive coordinator Rob Leonard. The real story here is not a lawsuit or a locker room confrontation. The real story is a franchise trying to rebuild trust after years of dysfunction. It is a 28-year-old defensive end who has been responsible for 38.5% of his team's sacks, making the conscious decision to invest in a 22-year-old rookie quarterback from Miami instead of harboring resentment. It is a kid who flipped his commitment from Yale to become a walk-on level recruit at Cal, transferred to Indiana to play with his brother, won a national championship, won a Heisman, and walked into a volatile NFL locker room with nothing but the right words. I still need to earn it. There is no lawsuit. There is no incident. What there is, based on every piece of evidence available, is a veteran and a rookie building something. Whether it translates to wins remains to be seen. Training camp will be the first real test, and as one Raiders insider noted, that is the time to watch closely to see if Mendoza makes a move upward. But the idea that these two are heading to court, that one is fiction.